Hey guys, hello everyone. Welcome to this module 4 of Advanced Java Programming. In Advanced Java Programming, the fourth module is all about servlets. So let's start it. So what is a servlet? Basically, servlet is a program that execute on the server side of the web connection. Okay. Then just like applets, they extend the just as applets extend the functionality of the web server, servlets extend the functionality of web servers as well. That means servlets main function is to extend the functionality of the web server. Then servlets are designed to handle the request, process the data, and generate dynamic content for the web pages. So how does it occur? When a user requests for a static page, they enter a URL into the browser. Now the browser generates an HTTP request for a specific file, which the server maps to the appropriate resource. The server responds with an HTTP response containing the requested file. The response header includes the metadata such as the content type, whether it's a text or HTML, which indicates the MIME type of the source web page. So what is Servlet? If I summarize, Servlet is a small program which is running on the server side of the web application. They are mainly used to extend the functionality. What they do is they will handle the request, they'll process the data, and they'll generate dynamic content. Now how they will generate? First I have a user. The user, if they request for a static page, first they enter a URL. Now the browser, what will do is it will generate an HTTP request. Now once you generate the HTTP request, we get the response back in the form of either it's a text file or a HTML file, which includes all the metadata, and then it indicates the MIME type source of the web page. Coming to the advantages of servlets, now over traditional CGI. Now what is a CGI? CGI is nothing but a common gateway interface only, which is commonly used to create web applications or basically to handle all the form submissions. Okay, and it can also generate the web content more dynamically. So let's learn about the advantages. First we have is efficiency. In efficiency, let's see process management. Traditional CGI scripts start a new process for each HTTP request, which can be inefficient. The overhead of starting new processes can be significant, especially for fast operation. In contrast, servlets run within the Java virtual machine, and each request is handled by a lightweight Java thread rather than a heavyweight operation process. That means in efficiency, what happens is the traditional CGI, what they do is they, at every time for a new process, they will request a HTTP, they will raise for a HTTP request, and now they'll perform all this fast operation. But in case of a servlet, what you are doing is it is running within the JVM itself, and each request is handled by a lightweight thread in spite of the whole operating system. Next is memory usage. Memory usage, you can see like the code of the CGI script is loaded into the memory multiple times. Okay, but in case of servlets, they use multiple threads within a single JVM instance, meaning only one copy of the servlet class is loaded into the memory regardless of the number of requests. That means in memory usage, the code for the CGI program will be loaded multiple times, whereas in case of a servlet, what you are doing is only a copy of the servlet class is loaded rather than large number of requests. Next we have is convenience. Convenience first is language familiarity. So developers familiar with Java do not need to learn another languages such as Perl to write the server-side program. This reduces the learning curve and increases productivity. That means there is no need of learning any server-side languages like Perl. Therefore, with Java only, it reduces the learning curve and it increases the productivity. Now, what are the built-in utilities? You can check for common tasks such as pursuing and decoding the HTML form of data, reading and setting the HTTP headers, handling cookies, and tracking the session. So this is all about convenience. Power, direct server communication. Servlets can interact with the web server, which is not possible with the regular CGI programs. That means servlets can interact with the web server, whereas the CGI programs cannot directly interact. Moving forward, next we have is data sharing. Data sharing, what happens is the servlets can share data among each other, facilitate the database connection tools. That means the servlets can share data among themselves, facilitating that they have a proper database connection. Now next we have a state management. State management, what happens is they can also, servlets can maintain information across multiple requests, simplifying the session tracking and caching of previous computation. That means it can handle the multiple requests, and it has mechanisms like session tracking and caching of previous computation. That means it can save the content in the cache memory of the previous computations as well. Next is portability. Portability, we have standardized API and cross-platform support. For standardized API, the servlets are mainly written in Java and they followed a well-defined standardized API. This means that the servlets developed for one server, that means one Planet Enterprise server, can run on other servlets with minimal changes. That means with the standardized API, if we have one servlet ready, which is developed on one server, they can run on other servers as well. Fine. Next we have is cross-platform. Cross-platform, like it can directly or indirectly you can connect through a plugin, and also enhances the portability across different server environments. Next is cost effectiveness. Cost effectiveness is inexpensive deployment. Many web servers support servlets that are available at free or low at cost. That means some are free and low cost, so we can easily afford it. Next is low cost infrastructure. That means the use of free or inexpensive servers is suitable for a personal use or low volume websites. So for low volume websites and for personal use, we can make use of this low cost infrastructure. That's all about what are the advantages of servlets over a traditional CGI script. This 5 points you have to mention. Next we have is the phase of the servlet lifecycle. So what happens is this lifecycle of a servlet is managed by a web container. Example, Apache Tomcat, and it includes various phases. First is the loading of the servlet class. How will you load the servlet class first? Let's see. The servlet class is loaded when the web container receives the first request for the servlet. This loading happens only once during the servlet's lifecycle. That means the servlet class is loaded when we have a web container. The web container receives the first request for the servlet, and this loading will happen only once in one life cycle. Okay. Next is to create an instance. The web container creates an instance of the servlet class. That means whatever like in the web container you are taking the request, it will create an instance, and this instance creation also happen only once, ensuring that a single instance of the servlet is used to handle multiple requests. That means only one instance we have, and using that only one instance only, we can handle all the multiple requests. Okay, so the web container invokes the init. For that, the web container will invoke the init method to initialize the servlet. This method is called only once when the servlet instance is first loaded. That means once you are loading the servlet in the web container, then this init method will be called. Now this init method, what is the syntax? Public void init servlet config throws servlet exception. You have to remember the syntax, guys. Next is servlet handling service. So what is happening is each time a request is received, the web container calls the service method of the servlet. If the servlet has not been initialized, the container calls the init method before invoking the service method. That means each time whenever we are receiving a request, the web container which is present, it will call the service method of the servlet to do the particular set of operation. Now if the servlet is only not initialized, what it will do, the web container will call the init method, and this init method will continue the process. Now what is the syntax? Syntax is public void service servlet request servlet response. That means once you have a request, once the request is successful, then you can generate a response, or else like throws a servlet exception, IOE exception. That means if any error occurs, it will throw an exception. Next is destruction. This is destroy. Before the servlet instance is removed from the service, the web container calls the destroy method. Now this destroy method is used to perform any cleanup, such as releasing resources or closing the connection. That means this destruction method will help you that finally my job is done. I should clean up all the resources. I will release the resources and I will close the connection. So that's all about this destruction part. Let's understand this example of servlet. First header file is IOE exception, servlet exception for handling with the servlet, HTTP servlet request and response. That means it's all about the HTTP request and response headers. We already know, like once I am requesting any data, so I'll generate an HTTP request will be generated, and once the request, for example, if I want the result in a form of a text file or HTML file, then it again gets back in the form of a response. So let's see how it works. Class hello world servlet extend HTTP servlet, like extends method we have used, because HTTP servlet, it will take all the properties of this you can say this library or package. Now initialization method, what happens is, for you first you have to initialize the servlet. How will you initialize the servlet? At the rate of override public void init throws servlet expression, then system.out.println servlet is being initialized. Now once you initialize the servlet. Next we have to handle the HTTP GET request. Then what is the method? @override protected void do get. We have two parameters here: HTTP servlet request, HTTP servlet response. Throws the particular kind of exception. Now this is mainly used for generating the request, get and set request. Now once it is done, now we set the response content type to text or HTML. That means whatever I have requested, now the data has to be stored either in the form of text file or an HTML file. This is line of code is used for that only. Response.set content type text or HTML. Then once it is done, you write the response. At the response, like response.get writer println, like this output will be generated in the form in a you can say an HTML file only, like hello world. You have used the tags hello and world. Then we have a destruction method. Destruction method is like similarly, you are just servlet is being destroyed. That means the cleaning up the system and releasing all the resources. Next, what is the explanation of this code? Loading the servlet class. When the servlet is first requested, the web container loads the hello servlet class. Okay. Creating an instance, the web container creates an instance of hello world servlet. Initialization, the init method is called, which is used to perform initialization task. Next is request handling. Request handling is all about the toGet method, which will handle all the requests. It sets the response content time to text or HTML and writes a sample hello world to the response. And destruction is nothing but once it is servlet has to be unloaded. That means all the necessary cleanup has to be done and you are releasing all the resources. Next we have is deployment descriptor. Deployment descriptor is nothing but it's an XML file which is named as web.xml, located in the web.inf directory of the Java web application. Just remember this web.inf directory. Now this file, what it will do is it will configure the web application and will control all the behavior of Java servlets and the JSPs, JavaServer Pages. Now it defines the mapping between the URL and the corresponding servlet that handle requests to those URLs. That means the deployment descriptor, that is an XML file, what it will do, it will handle, or I should say it will define the mapping between the URLs and the corresponding servlet which will be handling that particular URL. Now it has also specifies the parameters like initialization parameters, servlet filter, listener classes and other configurations. Now let's understand this code in detail. First we have a header file, and the important components first is header, doc type and web component element. Header is nothing but includes the XML version and the encoding. Doc type is nothing but document type definition for the XML file, and web app element is the root element of the deployment descriptor and it contains the other configuration elements. Now let's analyze this code in detail. What are the components of the web XML? Guys, it's the same code only which was given in the previous page. Just I have taken the code snippets and then I have given the explanation of each and every line. First is header. Question mark XML version 1.0 encoding this. This line declares the XML version and the character encoding used in the file. This is for the header. Next we have is a doc type. Doc type, what it will do is, this is the doc type line. Doc type web application public Sun microsystem web application 2.2 en. What it will do, it defines the documentation type, ensuring that the XML file follows the structure specified by the DTD of web application. That means it follows a proper documentation format. Next is web app element. We have a web app portion, the root element that contains all the configuration details for the web application. That means the web app will contain all the configuration details. Next we have is the servlet element. Servlet element, this is the code snippet. Servlet name is my servlet, my Java servlet. Class is my package.myServlet class. Then parameters. Now let's understand this in detail. Servlet name specifies a name for the servlet. Now this name is used in the mapping to map the servlet to a URL pattern. Now this servlet name, what it will do is it will specify a particular name of the servlet and it will help you to map to a particular URL. Next is servlet class. Servlet class specifies the fully qualified class name for the servlet. Init parameter will take all the initialization parameters. Like each init parameter contains a parameter name and a value. Next we have is the servlet mapping. For servlet mapping, this is the code snippet. Servlet mapping. Servlet name, what is the servlet name? Servlet name matches the name specified in the servlet element. Then we have this URL pattern. The URL pattern will be mapped to the servlet. When a request matches this URL pattern, the specified servlet will handle the particular request. That means each servlet will have different requests. Once you have a matching URL pattern, then this if you have a particular URL pattern of a particular servlet, then it will perform a particular operation once the URL matches. Next, what are the additional configuration options? Servlet filters, listener classes, error pages, and security constraints. Servlet filters to intercept the requests and responses and perform filtering tasks. Listener classes to handle events in the web application. Error pages to define the customized error pages, and security constraint is only used for security purposes for the web application. That's all about this XML file. Now next we deal about reading data from the client in a servlet. To read a data from a client to a servlet, you need to handle the HTTP request either using a get or a post method. Like whatever I want to read some data, or I want some data from the net. So being the client, what I will do is I will generate a request. So the servlet, what it will do, from the server side, we handle all the HTTP requests and it will use the get and set method. Now the data is sent by the client can be accessed using the get parameter or get parameter values method. Okay, now let's see the explanation of the code. First is doGet method. doGet method, what it will do is it is used when a client sends data via HTTP get method. So for HTTP get method, you are using doGet. Next we have doPost. For doPost method, same thing, only it handles query parameters you appended to the URL. Now doPost method also used when the client sends data via the HTTP post, and it handles form data in the form of HTTP request. That means the get method, what will do, doGet method will be used only when the client sends data via the HTTP get method, and also it handles the query parameters. Whereas the doPost method, what will do is it is used by the client only via HTTP post, and also it handles the data which is sent in the form of HTTP request. Next is retrieving parameters. Next is get parameter. Get parameter nothing but retrieves the value of a single parameter as a string you are getting. Next is returns null if the parameter does not even exist, or it returns an empty string if the parameter exists or it has a no value. That means depending upon the parameter which you are passing in get parameter method, it will retrieve a particular value. It can be null if the parameter doesn't even exist, or it can be an empty string if it exists but it has no value. Next is get parameter values of string name. What it will do, it will retrieve the value of the parameter that has multiple values as a string array. So here it is a string array which has multiple values. For that we're using the get parameter values method, and it can also be used for handling multiple select form elements and check boxes. This is the HTML form to send data to the servlet. This is the form action equal to myServlet.js to method equal to post. A post method we have used. Enter the email address. You put in the email address name and then just submit. Now what is the servlet code to handle the request? This is the servlet code, guys. Import HTTP. You can see this is the import statement. The import statement is nothing but it imports all the necessary classes from the java.io, then java.servlet and HTTP to handle all the this HTTP request operation. Then you have a class definition. This my servlet, what it will do, it will extend the HTTP servlet, allowing to handle all the HTTP requests. Then we have a doGet method. Now what this doGet method will do, it handles the HTTP get request by calling a common method to handle this request. Okay, now next is doGet is done. doPost, what it will do, doPost will request the same thing it will do as the get method, but point is it handles all the HTTP post request by calling the same common method handle request. Okay, now this is done. Followed by that, what we are doing here is, now you set the content type where you want, either in a form of text or in an HTML file. Then you get the writer to write the response. Now once it is done, we have to write the response. So for writing the response, we need this line, print writer pw equal to response.get writer. Now write the HTML response, println HTML, then title Java servlet, then body. Just we are writing the HTML responses. Now if it is said, like if email is not equal to null and not equals to email is empty, it will print the email address. And that's all. This is proper an HTML and documentation what we have done to write the response. The explanation of the code I've already said. You can just go through it. Moving forward, next we have is reading HTTP request headers in a servlet. Now how will you read the HTTP headers? Here we have discussed how to read a data from a client. Now here it is, reading HTTP request headers in a servlet. Now HTTP request headers are mainly used by the client to provide information about the requested context so that the server can tailor the response accordingly. That means the HTTP request headers, why it is used, it is mainly used by the client itself. The client, what will do, it will help them to provide the information about what particular request I need and what response has to be given accordingly. Now the servlet can read these request headers to process the data component of the request. Next, what are the components? First one is the accept. Accept specifies the MIME type, whether what kind it is, whether it's an image in JPEG format or a GIF format or whatever format it is. Now accept and char set, it specifies the character sets that are acceptable, like accept UTF-8. Then we have is accept encoding, like encoding in the sense like what are the special encodings present, like it is gzip or deflate. Then we have cookie. Cookie returns the stored cookies to the server, for example cust num equal to 1 2 3 4 5. Next is host. Host is nothing but the domain name of the server and the TCP port number on which the server is listening. This is nothing but the host. Then we have is the referrer. Referrer nothing but contains the URL of the web page from which the request was made. For example, https.example.com index.html. It states that from here the particular request was made and it is done using a particular URL. Next, this is the code snippet HTML file. It is doc type HTML head title. We have given HTTP header example. Same example, guys. Enter the email address, text ID, same thing what we have seen before. The code is also pretty much same itself. That is we declare first the header and then we use the get request method, then the post request method, then we have a common method to process both the request. The same code explanation as we have seen before. Then you are once it is done, you set the content type. I want it is in text or HTML, text oblique HTML file. Then you read the content headers. Content headers can be either 4 types. It can be accept, host, referrer, or a user agent. Next is write the response. Like how will you write the response now? So here read some common headers is like these are the 4 common headers from which it has to read. So these are the following common headers. These are the responses how you need, either in the form of HTML, HTTP header example. Then you print the accept, host, refer, and the user agent here. Then you close the servlet. Next is sending data to the client and reading all the HTTP response headers. It's also one of the same thing only. A servlet responds to the client's request by reading the client data and HTTP request headers, processing information based on the request, and then sending an appropriate response. That means it will read the client data and the HTTP request headers. It will process the information based upon the request and then it will send the appropriate response to it. This is the code snippet. Same thing again, the header files for handling the servlet. Next we have is the handle the get request. For handling the get request, this is the code snippet, public void do get HTTP request and response, 2 parameters, one for handling the request, one for the response. If any error occurs, throw the exception. Next is set the content type. Set content type like how you want. I want in text or HTML file. Next you print the content, like get the print writer instance to write the response. For this is the code snippet. Next is write the HTML response. For writing the response, we are doing in HTML format only. That means my response, this is my response. This is nothing but HTML content file. Close. Same thing for writing the HTTP response header. To write the HTTP response header, use methods such as set status and set header. So remember one thing, for reading the response, it was do read and post method, the get and post method. But for writing, it is use set status and set header. Same thing, guys. Just changes, some minor changes will be there. Like here, you have to add this code. Like once you handle the get request, next will be set status code response.set status, then set some headers. Again the same, the headers will put, then again the print writer content. Okay, so this set some headers is mainly used for this writing the HTTP request header. Okay, so next you just get the print writer to write the response. Write response will be generally in the write the HTML response only. Print ln HTML, then head title HTTP my header response. Then again you print the response, then again close the servlet. Next we have is cookies. Cookies, what are cookies? Cookies are the small text files that are stored on the client matching machine to track the information about the user. Servlets can create and manipulate cookies, enabling the persistent client side state. So that means cookies are nothing but they are small text files which are stored on the client machine. What they do is it will track information about the user. They can also now the servlets can also create and manipulate the cookies, enabling persistent client-side state. So how does the cookies work? Cookies work well. The server sends cookies to the client. That means the server sends cookies via HTTP headers. Now the client stores cookies. The browser stores the cookies locally. Now the client returns the cookies. On subsequent request, the browser sends the stored cookies to the server. This is how the cookies work. So I'll just summarize it again. First you have is the first the server, what will do, it will send the cookies via HTTP headers. Then the browser will store all the cookies locally. Now once it is stored, on subsequent request the browser will send all the stored cookies to the server. Now how to set the cookies? To set the cookies, following steps are as follows. First is to create a cookie object. Use the cookie constructor to create a cookie with a name and a value. That means cookie of cookie is equal to new cookie. Key and value has to be added. Now next is setting the maximum age. Now determines how long the cookie is valid. That means cookie.set max age 60 into 60 into 24. That means we are saying it's from 24 hours we can this cookie is valid. Next is add cookie to the response. Means add the cookie to the HTTP response headers. Now how to add this? Response.add cookie. Okay, now let's look up to the example of how to write a cookie. Header files. Okay, next same thing, hello from external HTTP servlet void do get method for getting the request, for generating the request. Next is to create a cookie. Once you create a cookie, we are passing a user ID, name and a value. This key value pair for user ID, for username user ID, and ID is 123. Then you are setting a maximum age of the cookie 60 into 60, that is for 1 hour. Then you add a cookie to the response. Add a cookie to the response in the sense like after generating the response, this response will be mainly stored in the cookie itself, so my cookie. So next will be set the cookie content type. Cookie content type will be either in text or in HTML format. Next is write the response. How will you write the response? Like what is the instance of it in HTML file, and HTML head title my cookie. Then again you are just writing the response here. Now writing a cookie is done. How will you read a cookie now? For reading a cookie, we need to follow two steps. First is retrieve cookies. The retrieve cookies, what we'll do is it will call the get cookies method of the HTTPS request, and the syntax for this is cookies equal to request dot get cookies. Next is access each cookie. How will you access each and every cookie? Loop through the array of cookie objects and use get name and get value methods to access each cookie name and value. That means for getting information or to access a particular cookie, we have to use two methods, that is get name and get value methods. This is the code for that. If cookies are not equal to null, then you just go inside the loop. For cookie colon cookies, that means we are iterating through the array, iterating through each and every cookies present in the array. Then string name equal to you need to get the name and you get the value, then you process each and every cookie. This is the code for reading a particular cookie. For reading the particular cookie, same thing. First you just initialize the servlet, then you read all the cookies. You can see this is same as this. Okay, now you set the content type how you need, whether it's a text or HTML format, and then you write the response. Same thing guys, and again we are looping through the entire array of cookies and getting the information about each and every cookie. Now for cookie colon cookies, name and value of each cookie we are getting. Okay, or else no cookies found. Followed by that we have just ended the this HTML this file, and then we have just closed the servlet connection. Done with this, next we have is the Java Server Pages. Java Server Pages or the JSP is a technology of developing web pages that support dynamic content. Okay, it also used to create managed content using HTML and Java combined. JSP is designed to give higher level of abstraction over the Java servlet. That means your JSP is basically used for creating all the dynamic content, and also it is mainly a mix of HTML and Java, and it is used to provide higher level of abstraction. What are the key features? Key features first is the server-side processing. Server-side processing, Java runs, JSP runs on the server, generating dynamic content before sending to the client. And also its ease of use. JSP is easier to handle also and to write also because it embeds Java code directly to the HTML. That means within the HTML file only you can embed the Java code, which will make us very easy to implement the JSP. Okay. What is the life cycle now? So life cycle methods. First is JSP init. JSP init. First we have three key life cycle methods. First is JSP init. JSP init, what it will do is JSP init called once when the JSP is first loaded. This method will be called only when we are loading the JSP. Then it is similar to much more like init method of servlet, and it is mainly used for initialization task. Now how to initialize it? You just initialize like this, public void JSP init. Then inside you write the code. Next you have is the service. For service, it handles the client request. The method is called for every client request. You are calling the service method, and it is much more similar to your do get and do post of your servlet. Fine. This is the code for that. Syntax: public void JSP service. You are passing the request, response, and then throw servlet exception. Next we have is a JSP destroy. JSP destroy will be called once when the JSP is unloaded. It is much similar to your destroy method of your servlet, and it is used for cleanup task and releasing all the resources. Next we have a sample JSP program. So let's look after this. The same thing, we have just embedded the Java code directly into the HTML. So this is the code. Ampersand of at the rate of page language equal Java content type set UTF encoding UTF equal to 8. Then just declare an HTML file head, HTML head, then title welcome to JSP page. Then again one more welcome to JSP. Just we have put different headers, then printing the current and date and time using this java.util and date package. So you are also printing the username, like hello, what user you are and what user it is using. Next is explanation of the code. Let's see. We have seen many more directives were used, like this way, opening bracket percentage at the rate, again percentage. Then this page directive is used to set the language content and the page encode. That means these directives will help you to set a particular language and also content type and page encoding. Next we have a scriptlet. Scriptlet is mainly used between percentage comma percentage colon percentage dot 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 percentage. It is used to embed the Java code within the HTML and also it will be executed when the page is requested. Also we have used many expressions like percentage equal to percentage. What it will do is it is used to output the result of Java expression directly to the client. So that's about all the different types of you can say the different code snippets we have used. One, you can see for directives we have used percentage at the rate, which will help you to set the language code. Also for scriptlet, what we have used is, for scriptlet we have used percentage directly, which will help me to embed the Java code into HTML. And also for expression we have used percentage equal to, which will help me to output the expression. Next we have something known as JSP tag. JSP tag, what are used is, they are used to embed the Java code into the HTML content, allowing dynamic generation of the web pages. That means JSP tag will help me to dynamically generate all the web pages. What are the various ways, or I should say the various tags present in JSP? First is the comment tag. For comment tag, the syntax is percentage comment percentage. Purpose is to add comments within the JSP code that are not sent to the client. Okay, this is the format. Next we have the declaration tags. Declaration tag is percentage declaration. Purpose, again it is used to declare variables, methods, classes. Then again example, and what is this example of declaration? Public void increment counter. Like this is my example of a declaration. That's it. Then directive mainly used defined by the same thing, percentage at the rate. We have already seen it before. So provide the global information about the JSP page, such as importing Java packages, including files and custom tag libraries. That means directive tags is mainly used for global information about all the JSP tag, and not only this, but also importing the Java packages, including the files and the custom libraries. Then we have a common directive. Common directive is nothing but the page directive, include directive, and tag lib directory. Page directive is used for page encoding. This is the syntax for this. Include directive for includes the content from another file. Percentage at that include file header.html. Tag lib directory declares a tag library that can be used in the JSP page for declaring all the tags. Then next we have something known as expression tag. For expression tag, what it will do is it will evaluate the expression and convert the particular result into a string, which is then included in the output. So this is a particular syntax of expression tag. Next we have is the scriptlet tag. What a scriptlet tag will do, it will contain the actual Java code that has to be executed during the request processing. This is the particular scriptlet tag which is declared between opening this, closing this. Okay, this is all about the different types of tags of JSP. Next we have is the example of JSP. Let's see the example first. This is again we have used this tags, then HTML head, then JSP title example. Then again various tags we have used, like first we can already see the percentage equal to, this is nothing but the declaration tag itself. Then again some directive tags we have used. This is all about a basic example of your JSP. Okay, next we have something variables and objects in JSP. So in JSP what happens, you can declare variables and objects using a declaration tag itself. So using declaration tag, you can declare variables as well as objects. How to use, this is a declaration example. For example, I'm using the current java.util date and time library for printing the current date and time in the server. So this is the main code for this, for printing the current date and time. For declaration tag, we have used percentage equal to and percentage at the rate for declaration. So this is mainly for the page import, and percentage not equal to int age equal to 29. This is basically the declaration tag, okay, used in this below code snippet. This is the particular declaration tag. What is the explanation? Percentage not equal to percentage used to declare the variable age and the object current date. That means this percentage not equal to will be used as a declaration tag here. Followed by that we have an expression tag. An expression tag, what will do is it will evaluate a particular expression and use to output the values of age and current date directly into the HTML content. So we have used two tags. First is the declaration tag. Declaration tag will help you to declare the variables like age and the current date and time, and also the expression tag for evaluating the expression. Next we have is using methods in JSP. What are the different methods what we can use? The same thing, guys. We have various declaration tags like percentage not equal to percentage exclamation mark percentage, and also percentage equal to percentage. This is nothing but what we have done is we have just done addition of just two numbers. Okay, so same thing, JSP, we have implemented Java code within the HTML. This is the HTML format. You can see the file documentation what we have done. HTML head title, head and body. Followed by that we have int add, just added two numbers and you're returning the sum. Then you're printing the addition of two numbers. Fine. So what is the explanation? Let's see. We have the page directive, that is percentage at the rate equal to. You can see percentage at the rate equal to we have used here. Okay, it specifies the language as Java and sets the content type and the page encoding. That means this percentage at the rate will help you to specify that what particular language you are using, and also the particular content type and the page encoding. Next, declaration tag. We have already know this percentage exclamation mark is nothing but declaration tag, which does nothing but it is a function which adds the two numbers and returns the sum. Then we have an expression tag. Expression tag will call the add method and output the result into the screen. Next are this is same thing again, detailed breakdown I have given. So guys, these notes are all made from the prescribed textbook itself, okay, which is there for your syllabus and prescribed under VTU. The notes are will be available in the Google Drive link only. You can just go and download it from there itself. It's my own notes. Next we have is control statements in JSP. What are the control statements? Control statements will allow you to alter the flow of your program based on a particular condition. Based on a particular condition, I can alter the flow itself. Then this feature will enable the creation of truly dynamic content of web application, and also we have two main control statements in JSP. We have a if statement and a switch statement, both of which I also use in the Java programming also. First, we have a if statement. What does the if statement do? We already know. If statement is used to execute a block of code only if a specified condition is true, or else an else block can be included to execute the code if the condition is false. Next, we have is the example using if statement. This is nothing but again one more tag we have given, %page language equal to Java. This is nothing but you are giving a page directive tag where you are setting that yes, my language is Java. I am giving my page encoding and everything. And then again it is just what happening is we are passing a grade, okay, and grade we are checking whether we have passed or not. So just we are declaring a variable in JSP, and if we are checking if it is greater than 69, that means I have passed, or else better luck next time. Okay, this is the same thing, the HTML file only which you have embedded with Java. So this is the explanation, guys. Page directive I have given in the beginning itself. Then we have a declaration tag. Declaration tag is nothing but this one, which will declare the integer variable grade and initialize the value as 26. Then we have a scriptlet tag. This is the scriptlet tag. Scriptlet tag will do nothing but it contains the actual if statement to check whether the value of the grade and the output different based upon the condition. That is, depending upon the condition, what output will I get. This is all about the if scriptlet tag. Now we have seen using if. Now let's see using switch case. Now this is the switch case statement we have next. First, nothing but the you can say this the same thing. The page directive you have given, the page directive is this one, this line. Then again you are just declaring the HTML file of JSP programming. You are passing the grade as 85. Now again what you are doing is, in spite of using a if statement, you have just used a switch. We have just used a switch case. Switch case, how it will do, like if it is case 9, it will print A, B, C, D, F. Based on the condition, I'll print the different types of grades. Okay. So moving forward, nothing but next you are just printing the content. Page directive already I mentioned before, used page language as Java and set the content type and page encoding. We have a declaration tag. Declaration tag contains nothing but the integer variable grade with which we have to compare with. And next is the scriptlet tag. Scriptlet tag is nothing but the entire switch case. Next we have is looping statements. What are the looping statements? We have three looping statements here. First is for loop, while loop, and do while loop. Okay, so yes, these are the normal identical loops which are used in your Java programming, and also they add capability of repeating HTML tags within the loop. Now let's see example using for loop. So this is the for loop. First we have taken a page directive. You are setting the language and the character encoding and everything. Then again an HTML file is there. For title we are printing for loop. We have taken, this is the scriptlet tag. Inside the scriptlet tag is nothing but the main content. We are just creating a for loop. We are just iterating it 10 times and we are printing hello world. That's it. Okay. So next we have is the explain the request string generated by the browser and how to read a request string in JSP. Okay. So a browser generate a request string whenever the submit button is selected. The user requests the string consists of URLs and the query string. Example of the request string is this. So what happens is, a browser is there. The browser, what will do is it will generate a request string. How? By once you select the submit button. Then once it is done, then your JSP program, what will happen is it will need to parse the query string to extract the value of fields that are to be processed by your program. Now once I submit the, you can say once I click on submit, then the JSP what it will do is it will parse the entire query string and will extract the value field that has to be processed. Okay, that means whatever information I need to process it, the JSP will query the JSP will parse the entire query string. Now how to do that? We use the get parameter to parse a particular value of a specific field to be processed by the program. Next you code the process. After that you just copy the multi-valued field, such as selection field can be tricky. Multi-valued fields are handled by using get parameter. So Like if you have any multi-valued fields or something, you are just using the get parameter method, followed by that other than if any requests are there, then you are just have protocols, port number as well as the host name. Now what are the request parameters? Request parameters takes only one parameter, that is the query string. Like once you submit a form, the browser sends request to the server with the parameters encoded in the URL or sometimes in the request body itself. So this is the example string http example.com servlet first name equal to Bob, last name is Smith. So here you are just giving like first name and last name is given. What it will do is the browser will send, once you submit this form, the browser will send a request to the server and all the you can say with all the necessary parameters, and it will query the particular string. Next is parsing request in JSP. What is parsing request in JSP? To parse and use the parameters sent in the request to typically do something like this. First is just a page language you have given direct and the directive. Then what is that? Page directive, yes. Then you are just passing the string first name and the last name using the get parameter method. Okay, so using just this get parameter method, you are just taking the two you can see the two informations like the first name and the last name itself. Next is handling multi-valued parameters. Okay, so if a parameter can have multiple values like checkboxes, you use the request.get parameter value. So this, guys, you have to remember for handling all the, you can say, multiple values. So you use the method request.get parameter values bracket parameter name. Now how will you handle the cookies in JSP? For handling cookies in JSP, again the same thing, guys. We have to create a cookie, then read a cookie. So how will you create a cookie? First, this is the page directive. Okay, page directive only, right? Yes. Then cookie name we have given, we have a cookie value or the ID we have given. Now just we're creating an object. Then you are just once you create the object, you are adding some of the other contents or information which I need to be stored in the cookie. Now what's done, it has to be read. How will you read the cookie? Same thing, you create a for loop. Creating the for loop, we are just inside the for loop we have iterating the loop such that whatever cookies are present in my array, I can go and access any one of the among cookies. Okay, that is all about cookies in JSP. This is the particular code which you have to remember, guys. Then next we have is how to configure a Tomcat. Okay, so Tomcat is also, you can say, it's a server only or a web or a servlet itself, like how to do it. So first is step by step. First, download the Tomcat. For downloading the Tomcat, we have to go to the Tomcat website itself, apache.tomcat website. Then what to do is you have to navigate to the download section and select the latest stable release. Then choose the binaries distribution, which includes the executable files. So first, what step is you download the Tomcat. For downloading the Tomcat, we want you can say a website where you can download. The website is nothing but this name, tomcat.apache.org. You visit the Tomcat website, you go to the download section and check for the latest version. Choose the binary distribution so that all the executable files are present. Then you install the Tomcat, create a folder called Tomcat. For example, C in the C drive only for Windows, or if you're using like Unix or Ubuntu, you can use opt.tomcat. Then download the zip file for Tomcat. Once you download it, then you have to unzip it. Unzip it in the particular directory where you want to save. Next, you have to configure the environment variables. For configuring environment variables, what to do is just click on my computer, this PC, and select properties. Go to environment variables. Under system variables, what to do is click on new, add the Java home path and just click for the installation. Okay. Next is configure the environment variables. This is for Unix like system. Since we are using Windows as the operating system, we no need of just for knowledge purpose you can study this. That is export Java home path to your JDK. This is the path. And for the exporting the path is $path $Java home bin. Okay, now once it is done, you have to modify the Tomcat startup script. What to do, just navigate to the directory C:tomcat bin. Then you edit the startup script. How to edit? Startup.bat for Windows is the command. Then set the Java home variables to your JDK application path. So guys, these are just the normal steps. You have to remember it for if the question comes, how will you configure configure a Tomcat, what are the steps for installing a Tomcat browser. Next we have the start the Tomcat. How to start the Tomcat? Just open the command prompt on Windows or the terminal, navigate to the Tomcat and just click run the startup.bat. Once it is done, you are good to go. Then verify the Tomcat installation. You open your web server, you enter into the local host in the address bar, and then if it is Tomcat is configured correctly, you should see Tomcat homepage indicating that Tomcat is running. That means if to check whether the Tomcat is correctly installed or not, in the homepage only it will indicate that yes, Tomcat is running. Next is creating and using session objects in JSP. Now in JSP, a session object is automatically created the first time a JSP page calls request.setSession to obtain a session. So what is session? Actually, session is like you can say in JSP a session object is automatically created, like it's created of its own for the first time only when you use this request.getSession method. Okay, so some session you are establishing, guys. So we have this attribute name as product and attribute value as 1 2 3 4. You are setting the session attribute by having its attribute name and value. Then again this is the, you can say the scriptlet tag. Just remember all the tags, guys, which one is which tag. Okay, like this is the like we have a page directive, then whatever different tags we have, tagline tab. Then this is the set attribute set successfully. What is the explanation now? Now the request.getSession, what it will do is it retrieves the current session associated with the request, creates a new one if necessary. Okay, that means getSession method will retrieve the current session. That means it will get the information about the current session with any request and create a new one if necessary. Then also set attribute method will also take the attribute name and the value, and also like sets an attribute in the session object. Okay, next we have the reading session attributes. How will you read the session attributes? Nothing. First the declaration tag, then again we have the scriptlet tag. For that what we have used is we have used the get attribute method. For get attribute method is nothing but getting the values back. Okay, you can see, I guess, get attribute names and get attribute name and get attribute of attribute names. So it's nothing but you are just getting the value of the attributes. So session dot get attributes names will return an enumeration of all the different attributes stored in the session. So this get attribute names method will return an enumeration of all the attribute names stored in the session. Next we have is a session.getAttribute. Session.getAttribute bracket attribute name. It retrieves the value of the attribute specified by the attribute name from the session. That means you are just getting the value of the attribute itself. What are the important points to remember? Session creation. What is session creation? Sessions are mainly managed by the servlet container like Apache Tomcat and are created automatically when request.getSession is called for the first time. That means if you want to create a session, the session will be created automatically whenever you are using this command request.getSession, and they are all managed by the servlet container itself. Next we have the session ID. Like session ID is mainly all the sessions are identified using a unique identifier that are mainly stored in the cookie in the user's browser. Okay, next we have with session attribute. Session attribute, what they will do is you can store any object as a session attribute and retrieve it across multiple requests until session expires or invalidated. That means you can store any of the object, like we can use the set attribute and get attribute method. We can use multiple we can generate multiple requests unless and until the session expires or it remains unvalidated. Okay, next is session management best practices. Always handle session attributes securely, especially when dealing with sensitive information. So whenever it's like you're dealing something too much you can say sensitive information, okay, so which lot of cryptographic information, so that has to be handled very much securely and properly. Also invalidate or expire sessions when they are no longer needed to be free of resources. That means whenever the session is not required, we would just expire the session or we use the method that is session.invalidate method. What it will do is it will end the session, it will terminate the session, releasing all the resources. Next is be mindful with the session timer. That is session timeout we have to remember to ensure the life cycle. So therefore we wind up this module of servlets. Okay, So this here we have covered all the, you can say, servlets, HTTP request response, headers, Tomcat, JSP, the different tags what we have used. Important questions and the previous year whatever questions we have seen will be covered in one video very soon. If you have any doubts in the video, please let me know in the comment section. Till then, please like, share and subscribe. All the best for your exams. Thank you guys.